Yesterday, the United States Navy sank 6 Iranian boats in the Strait of Hormuz. Today, the Pentagon paused the operation it had launched 24 hours earlier. 230 oil tankers are loaded and stranded inside the Persian Gulf right now. The chief executive of Abu Dhabi National Oil Company put that number on the record this spring. 7 food categories reach American shelves before any of those tankers move again. Here they are, in the order they hit your store. By the end of this video, 3 things. First, the 7 categories, sourced from the U.S. Department of Agriculture's April Food Price Outlook, the United Nations Office for Project Services, and a working paper published last month by the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. Second, the exact week each one reaches your local store. Not soon, not eventually, the week. Third, the 3 items worth buying this weekend before the wave reaches retail. Start with what actually happened in the last 48 hours. On Sunday, May 3rd, President Trump announced an operation called Project Freedom, a U.S. Navy mission to escort commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. By Monday afternoon, U.S. Central Command head Admiral Brad Cooper told reporters the Navy had destroyed 6 Iranian small boats with Apache helicopters. Within hours, Iran answered. The United Arab Emirates Ministry of Defense reported engaging 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, and 4 drones launched from Iran on Monday alone. A drone strike at the Fujairah Petroleum Industries zone wounded 3 Indian nationals. 2 drones hit an ADNOC-affiliated tanker as it transited the strait. These were the first attacks on the UAE since the ceasefire took effect on April 8th. Brent crude closed at $114.40 a barrel, the highest close of 2026. The average national price of a gallon of regular gasoline, according to AAA, is now $4.48. Before this war began, that number was $2.98. Then, on Tuesday, 24 hours after Project Freedom began, President Trump paused it. He cited what he called great progress toward a final agreement with Iran. The U.S. blockade of Iranian ports remains in place, but the operation to guide commercial ships through the strait has stopped. The strait is not reopened. The 230 tankers are still loaded and stationary. General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told reporters Tuesday morning that 1,500 vessels and 22,500 mariners remain trapped inside the Persian Gulf. That is the surface of the story. Now the part that is not. The Strait of Hormuz is not just an oil choke point. It is a fertilizer choke point. About 1/3 of the world's fertilizer trade transits the strait in normal times. That number is the operating estimate used by the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and the UN Office for Project Services, which set up a special task force last month to keep fertilizer moving for humanitarian reasons. 50% of globally traded urea, the most widely used nitrogen fertilizer on Earth, originates in the Gulf and transits Hormuz. The single largest urea production facility in the world, a Qatari operation called Qafco, sits inside that perimeter and is shut down. Urea prices at the New Orleans hub, the price American farmers actually pay, went from $475 per ton in early March to a peak near $694 per ton in mid-April. As of yesterday's close, urea is trading near $585 per ton. That is 23% above where it was a year ago. When fertilizer is restricted at planting time, the harvest months later is smaller. When the harvest is smaller, the wholesale price of grain rises. When wholesale grain rises, the food categories that depend on grain rise too. Different categories travel that timeline at different speeds, which is why the 7 categories I'm about to walk you through hit American shelves in a specific order. Category 1. Cooking oil. Soybean oil, palm oil, sunflower oil. The vegetable oils in salad dressings, packaged snacks, fried foods, baked goods, and the bottle on your stove.
These move first because they are tied directly to crude oil prices. When crude rises, demand for biofuel rises, and biofuel competes with cooking oil for the same feedstock. Toysin Jack, Director of Market Reporting at the commodities firm Expana, told Food Navigator in early March that soybean oil is positively correlated with crude, and that spot prices are driven by energy prices, not by the soybean market itself. Chicago soybean oil futures hit 2-year highs in March. Time to your shelf, 1 to 2 weeks. Category 2. Packaged dairy. Powdered milk, evaporated milk, shelf-stable cheese, processed dairy. These move second because dairy farmers are diesel-dependent at every step: feed delivery, milking, transport. And dairy processing plants are some of the most energy-intensive food facilities in the country. Time to your shelf, 2 to 3 weeks. Category 3. Coffee. Coffee was already in a tight market before this war started. The World Bank's Beverage Index showed Arabica at roughly $9 per kilogram in November of 2025, about 35% higher than a year before. The USDA Food Price Outlook, released in April, projects non-alcoholic beverage prices, which is the category that holds coffee, rising 5.2% in 2026. Most coffee that reaches the United States arrives by container ship from Brazil, Colombia, Vietnam, and Indonesia. War risk insurance for ships transiting near Hormuz climbed from 0.125% of insured value to between 0.2 and 0.4% in the days before the war began. For a very large oil tanker, that single premium increase is roughly $250,000 per transit. When premiums spike in one choke point, underwriters reassess everywhere. That cost flows through to wholesale. Time to your shelf, 3 to 4 weeks. Category 4. Bread, pasta, and cereal. The grain categories. These take longer because there is wheat already in storage in the United States, but the inventory cycle from mill to shelf runs about 4 to 6 weeks for most national brands. When the next refill cycle hits, the wholesale grain prices baked into the new flour will reflect the fertilizer shock from this spring. Time to your shelf, 4 to 6 weeks. Category 5. Imported fresh fruit. Pineapples from Costa Rica, bananas from Ecuador, avocados from Mexico and Peru, mangoes from Brazil. These are not affected by Hormuz directly. They are affected by diesel. The ocean shipping lanes from Latin America to U.S. ports run on bunker fuel, and bunker fuel is correlated with crude oil. Time to your shelf, 4 to 6 weeks. Category 6. Fertilizer-intensive vegetables. Sweet corn, bell peppers, tomatoes, lettuce. These are different. These are not arriving in a few weeks. These are arriving with the harvest after planting season closes, late summer 2026 and into the 2026 and 2027 harvest year. Maximo Torero, FAO chief economist, told the United Nations in April that as planting decisions are being made right now, farmers who cannot get enough urea are switching crops, moving from wheat and maize to soybeans, which fix more of their own nitrogen. Fewer pounds of fertilizer-hungry vegetables on the shelves later this year. Time to your shelf, measured in months, not weeks. Category 7. Beef. This is the slowest of the 7. It is also the largest one already in motion. The American cattle herd is at a multi-decade low. The USDA's April food price outlook now forecasts retail beef and veal prices
rising 6.3% over the course of 2026. In March, retail beef and veal were already 12.1% higher than the same month a year before. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that average ground beef, 100% beef, U.S. city average, March 2026, was $6.70 per pound. These are not forecasts. These are the prices recorded in stores last month. The full effect of this war on cattle feed costs, on diesel, on moving live animals between states will not appear at retail until 2027, when this year's calf cohort moves through the system. Now the part of the story that almost no one is reading. In April of this year, 4 economists at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, Lutz Kilian, Michael Plant, Alexander Richter, and Xiaoqing Zhou, published a working paper called Working Paper 2609. The paper builds a structural model of what a closure of the Strait of Hormuz does to U.S. inflation. If the strait is closed for 1 quarter, fourth quarter over fourth quarter headline PCE inflation in 2026 rises by 0.6 percentage points. Their model has West Texas Intermediate crude peaking at $94 a barrel under that scenario. If the strait is closed for 3 quarters, the duration of the disruption that followed the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, fourth quarter headline PCE rises by 1.1 percentage points, and WTI peaks at $115 a barrel in October. That paper is on the Dallas Fed's own website. It is publicly available. It is, by every conventional measure, a primary source. It has not been on the front page of a single major American newspaper. Wolf Research's chief economist Stephanie Roth, in a note covered by CNBC in March, estimated separately that the Hormuz disruption could raise food-at-home inflation by roughly 2 percentage points on top of the USDA's baseline forecast. The USDA baseline for 2026 food at home is 2.4%. Stack the Wolf Research adjustment on top, and the implied annual rate is 4.4% for groceries. For comparison, USDA's 20-year historical average is 2.6%. So here is the picture. You have a Federal Reserve regional bank modeling WTI crude at $115 a barrel by October if the strait stays closed for 3 quarters. You have a Wall Street research firm modeling food-at-home inflation almost double the USDA baseline. You have the UN saying that without immediate solution, 45 million more people will be pushed into hunger. And on the other side of the table, 230 oil tankers loaded, stationary inside the Gulf. 6 small Iranian boats sunk on Monday. A Project Freedom operation that lasted 24 hours before the president paused it. A strait that nobody is actually transiting at scale. The 7 categories I just walked you through are the order in which that table reaches your refrigerator.
Now, the action plan. 3 items worth buying this weekend, while the wave is still in the wholesale layer. 1. Cooking oil. Soybean, sunflower, canola, or olive, whichever your household uses. Buy a 60 to 90-day supply. Cooking oil keeps for over a year unopened, longer in cool storage. This is the category arriving fastest, and the most directly tied to crude oil. It does not wait for the fertilizer cascade. It moves with the next gasoline price you see on the corner. 2. Coffee. If you drink it daily, buy a sealed 30 to 60-day supply. Whole bean keeps better than pre-ground in a cool, dark place. Coffee was already tight before the war. It is now compounding shipping disruption. The wholesale futures market has already moved. Retail catches up on the next reorder cycle. 3. Shelf-stable carbohydrates. Pasta, rice, oats, crackers, dry cereal. Build a 30-day reserve from what your household actually eats.
Not what you think you should eat, what you actually eat. These are the categories arriving in week 4 through 6. Buying now means the wholesale price you absorb is the pre-war wholesale price, not the one being formed this week in the futures market. 2 notes on what not to do. 1. Do not buy beef in volume right now. Frozen ground beef has a freezer life of 4 months. The beef wave from this war does not arrive at retail until next year. You have time, and the cattle herd reality is bigger than this single event. 2. Do not panic buy fresh fruit and vegetables. These are perishable. The shock for fertilizer-intensive vegetables arrives at harvest, not at the store next week. When that wave does land, the right move is shifting toward frozen and canned versions of the same vegetables. One last thought. When the strait reopens, oil markets will normalize. Shipping lanes will clear. Financial markets will reprice and move on to the next story. The food system clock does not reset on that day. It runs on its own timetable, governed by biology and growing seasons that cannot be rescheduled by a ceasefire announcement. That is the part the headlines are missing. If this is the kind of decoding you want, every news event mapped onto your pantry, anchored in primary sources, no filler, subscribe.